Kakadosh Boker Or. Daf Yomi Masechet Avodah Zarah Daf Kaf Amud Aleph 28:1. We're just going to start on the Mishnah on the Yutet Amud Bet. The Mishnah says, "En osin tachshitin la'avodah kochavim katlaot u'mzamim v'tabaot." You're not allowed to make any type of adornments to avodah kochavim. That doesn't matter whether we're talking about katlaot, which is different types of, that they put around. It's a necklace basically, or nizamim v'tabaot, or different rings or different types of bracelets. Eliezer says, "B'sachar mutar." You're allowed to do it if you're going to get paid for it. Meaning, stop making an adornment for avodah zarah, ze asur. But im meshalmim lecha, it's okay. So they pay you for it, so it's going to be mutar. Em mochrim lahem, you're not allowed to sell to them mechubar lekarka, but mocher hu sheikatzetz. But you're allowed to sell them something which is going to be niktzatz, which means that it could be cut down. So, for example, a tree or whatever, and then afterwards they're going to cut it down. Rabbi Omer mocher mina lakutz. He says no, you could sell it on condition that they're going to cut it down. So says the Gemara, mina nemile. How do we know these words? So Amar Rabbi Yosef Chanina says Rabbi Chanina, daf kaf amud aleph on the top. The Amar Kar, the pasuk says velo techonem. What does it mean lo techonem? Lo titen lahem haniya bekarka. Do not give them anything which is going to be kviyut, like haniya. What is haniya? Parking, right? Which is like kviyut in the karka. So says the Gemara, hay velo techonem ibaele. He says, I thought we needed da'achi kamar. I thought we needed lo techonem for something else. Da'achi kamar rachmana, but the Torah says lo titen lahem chen. We always know that you're not allowed to give them a present. You're not allowed to give them chen. What does that mean? You're not allowed to give them lashon chanina. I mean lashon chanaya. You're telling me that it's lashon chanaya. It's lo kashul lashon chanaya. It's kashul lashon haniya, chanina. So he says in Ken, if so, lemakar, the pasuk should say velo techonem with a vav. My velo techonem without the vav. Shmamina, we learn from here tarte. We learn from here two different halachot. So therefore, velo techonem is going to be lashon chanina, right, which is netinat chen, and also, right, velo techonem lashon chaniya. So it's two different things. The katim mebaile, we still need it. Ta'achi amarachmana, but the Torah says, lo tilay matanat chinam. Don't give them matanat chinam. Right? What does that mean? Right? So you're not allowed to come. So the one beforehand was chanina milashon, that you're not allowed to praise it. Say, look how beautiful this Avodah Zarah is. That's lashon chanina, latel lachen. Right? Now it's talking about matana shel chinam. So until here, now we have three explanations. Chaniya, right, which is talking about the mamash, the permanency in the karka. Chanina, milashon chen shevach, lagid kamana eze, velashon matanat chinam. Also, you're not allowed to do. So says the Gemara, in Ken, the pasuk should have said, "Lemakra lo techinem, my velo techonem, shmam niakulhu." So we have all three explanations. Okay, all three explanations. Very good. So three different explanations. What is the yisur av lo techonem? Tanya Miyachi, we also learned this in a braita. Lo techonem. What does that mean? Lo tilaim chanaya b'karka. Tavar acher, another explanation. Lo techonem. Lo tilaim chen. Don't give them chen. Tavar acher, the third explanation. Lo techonem. Lo tilaim matanat chinam. So you have all three explanations. Fine. So says the Gemara, umatanat chinam gufa tanaihi. The etzem din of matanat chinam is actually a machloket tanaim. The Tanya was learned in a braita, lo tochelu chol nevela. What does that mean that you're not allowed to eat a nevela? So you're not allowed to eat a nevela. You're going to give it to the ger, which is in your gates, and he's allowed to eat it, or you sell it to an ochri. This is only going to be to a ger by giving it to him, which is matanat chinam, or an oved kochavim when you sell it. Because one more time, how did it say? It said, La gera ashem sharecha titenena latet mashma matana or machol lenochri. So that's what he says. He says, En li ela leger benetina lo kochavim mechira. Leger bemechira minay. How do you know you're allowed to sell it to a ger? Tamulumar titenena o machol. So it's mashma o. How do you know you're allowed to give it to the goy also? Because before we said omachol enochri. So how do you know you could give it to the nochri? So he said samulomar titenena v'achala omachol enochri. So therefore it's mashma nimtza ta omer. So it comes out echad ger ve'echad kochavim. Whether it's a ger toshav, because here we're not talking about a ger that converted, because obviously if you converted, he's not allowed to eat a nevela as well, right? We're talking about the ger toshav. So a ger toshav or an ovek kochavim, ben menetina ben memechira, whether one or the other, meaning. Mutar shehem, או אתה מוכר להם, או אתה נותן להם במתנה דברי רבי מאיר. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda comes and he says, דברים ככתבן. No, it's kipshuto, the way that it's written. What's written? לגר זה דווקא בנתינה, ולעובד כוכבים זה דווקא במכירה. So you see from here that this is actually a machloket between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. Meaning, if according to Rabbi Meir, mutar latet lo mechinam vegam lagoy lenochri, as mutar matana chinam. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, no. Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, only a ger toshav you're allowed to give v'chinam. To a regular nochri, אתה חייב למכור לו. אז it comes out of מחלוקת between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. So says the Gemara, 1 second. But Shapir Kama Rabbi Meir. This entire concept, Be'emet, Rabbi Meir is Be'emet Tzodek. Why? Why is he Tzodek? Because the drasha is mashma o that both of them together. So he says, Rabbi Yehuda Malecha, but Rabbi Yehuda is going to come and he's going to tell you, Isal Kadaitach Kedekama Rabbi Meir. If you're going to tell me, right, the way that Rabbi Meir actually came and he said, yeah, Isal Kadaitach, if you're going to tell me, Kedekama Rabbi Meir, the way that Rabbi Meir said, Lichtov Rachmana, the Torah should have said it, Titenena v'achala umachor, right? He says, which means it should say umachor with vav chibur. Yeah, o lamali. Meaning, if it's going to be like Rabbi Meir, the pasuk should have said, Lo tochelu chol nevela, lagera shebisharecha titenena v'achala umachor lenochri. Not o, meaning with the vav, כמו vav chibur, umachor lenochri. Not o. מה זה או? Why is O coming? O למה לי? שמאמינה comes to teach you דברים שבכתבן ודעתה. So this is like Rabbi Yehuda. So therefore, באמת, the pasuk is more like Rabbi Yehuda, not like Rabbi Meir. So he says, no. But Rabbi Meir, but according to שיטת Rabbi Meir, ההוא להקדומה נתינה דגר למכירה דעובד כוכבים. He says, no. Even according to שיטת Rabbi Meir, אתה צודק שנכון, כתוב O. אז למה כתוב O? Because there's an order of preference. Order of precedence. What does that mean? אתה תמיד תקדים לגר תושב לפני שאתה תמכור את זה לעובד כוכבים. זאת אומרת, אני יש לי שתי אופציות. אני יכול למכור לגוי, או אני יכול לתת את זה לגר תושב, מתנה. מה יותר טוב? So here according to Rabbi Meir, it's teaching you the order of preference. What's the order of preference? First you give it to the ger toshav as a present. Then if you do not, then you come and you sell it to a goy. So therefore, even according to Rabbi Meir, the reason why it says O is to teach you, right, seder ha'adifuyot, the order of preference. Yeah, according to Rabbi Meir, yes. Yes, but one more time. According to Shitat Rabbi Meir, tamid mutar, o b'matana, o b'mechira. The Shitat Rabbi Meir. According to Shitat Rabbi Meir, c'est la même chose, ger toshav vegoy, זה אותו דבר. Mutar o b'matana o b'mechira. So ask Rabbi Yehuda against him, why does it say the word o? צריך להגיד עם וו החיבור. אשר בשעריך תיתננה ואכלה ומאכול לנוכרי. או, meaning like with a וו. זה אותו דבר. אומר, לא. יש עדיין סדר עדיפיות. סדר עדיפיות זה יותר טוב עדיין לתת לגר תושב במתנה, מלמכור את זה לנוכרי. אם אתה לא יכול... זה לא אומר שאסור. ורבי יהודה, and according to רבי יהודה, כיוון דגר, אתה מצווה להחיותו, וכנעני, אי אתה מצווה להחיותו. להקדים לא צריך קרא. Says according to רבי יהודה, I don't understand. You need a pasuk to tell you סדר עדיפיות? What is the נוכרי? The Canaani that's living in the land of Israel, correct? He comes and he says, the ger, אתה חייב להחיות אותו. כן? זה עוד פעם, אנחנו מדברים על גר תושב, לא מדברים על גר גמור. Right? גר שהתגייר ליהדות. Right? We're talking about גר תושב. So this ger, you're obligated to להחיות אותו. So the סדר עדיפיות, so for you to tell me that you're going to first give it to the ger before coming as a present, before coming and selling it to goy, that's pashut. I don't need a pasuk for that. So he says, why do I need a pasuk? So that's why, because of that, he says, that's why he says, דווקא כמו שכתוב. מה כתוב? לגר תושב מותר בנתינה. לגוי חייב במכירה. That's שיטת רבי יהודה. Okay? Fine. Next. דבר אחר. Another explanation. ולא תכונם. לא תיתן להם חן. מה זאת אומרת? This was the second explanation. What's the second explanation? You're not allowed לייחס לעבודה זרה לשבחם. So you can't say, what a beautiful Avodah Zarah. You're not allowed to say that. Asur. Lo techonem. You're not allowed to say that. זה לא אמרנו. לא דיברנו. אנחנו מדברים על עבודה זרה. So מסייע לרב. This is a proof to Rav. תאמר Rav says, right? אסור לאדם שיאמר, it's a prohibited for a person to say, כמה נאה עובדי כוכבים זו. Look what this עבודה זרה is. Yeah, what does that mean? Here we're talking about the yofi. So he says, so that means not only are not only of the of Oved Kochavim Zachar, Gam Shel Nekeva. Right? So here he comes and he says, right? Okay, here it says that the Yikur of Dekochavim Datenu could already bring us to them. So therefore, you're not allowed to be mishabeach tzuratam shel ovdei kochavim, kal vachomer lesaper b'shevach maaseim lechabev davar midivrehem. Okay, so now we're going to bring a proof to this. Yeah? What? Ma. So we just said that this is a proof to Rav. The Rav says you're not allowed to be mishabeach ovedet kochavim. Right? So let's see what it says. It says the Gemara Meitvei. We're going to ask the following question. Masechet Shimon ben Gamliel. Shayal gabe ma'ala b'Harabayit. There was a story with Rabbi Shimon Gamliel that he was on the ma'ala on Harabayit. Yeah? So here it says, right, they had madregot. So he was on this madregot. So he went and he saw a beautiful non-Jewish woman. So what happened? Amar marabu ma'asecha Hashem. He said marabu ma'asecha Hashem. Ve'af Rabbi Akiva. And even Rabbi Akiva, ra'esh et nusufus harasha. He saw the nusufus harasha. Yarak, right? He spat. Sahak, he started laughing. Ubacha, and he started crying. So what did he do? It sounds like an enigma. He sees one woman, right? The wife of Nusufus Rasha. He spits, he laughs, and he cries. Right? You're going to tell me this is like an emotional, I don't know what. Bipolar is not a tripolar. I don't know what this guy's doing. Yeah? What happens? Says the Gemara, Rak, Sheba mitipas rucha. He spat because this is coming, it doesn't matter how beautiful she is, she's still coming from tipas rucha. Sachak, he started laughing that he did the megayre v'nasivla because she's going to convert and she's going to get married to him. So he started laughing because this woman, that she's the wife of Tarnusrufus Rasha. Remember, Rabbi Akiva and Tarnusrufus used to argue a lot. Right? But Tarnusrufus used to come and start asking a whole bunch of questions, and Rabbi Akiva used to answer him. So she at the end was going to convert, she was going to get married to Rabbi Akiva. So he started laughing. Because this yofi, at the end of the day, the afar, at the end of the day, it's going to everyone goes back to the same place. Yes. Yeah. Right? Everyone goes back to the same place. Right? That's what Rabbi Akiva saw in Ruach HaKodesh. Yeah. So he comes and he says, so how could you tell me now, right, that you're not allowed to be mishabeach oved kochavim? Here it's written that yes. Right? Here it's written, Mefurash. So he says, V'Rav, right? And Rav, that he says that you're not allowed to be Mishabeach Yofyam. He says, do you dekamodeh. The Tana is you're being modeh to Hashem. You're not praising them. You're being modeh to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Amar Mor Bezmor says, Harueh briot tovot, Omer Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu Mecholam, Shekacha bara beolamo. When you see a beautiful creature, you're going to come and you're going to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, thank you so much that you've created these things in this world. There's a special bracha. So because of that, you're not praising the Oved Kochavim. What you're doing is you're praising Hashem. So it's a little bit different. So says the Gemara, okay, fine. So you just answered. There's one more time. You're not allowed to come and praise them because by praising them, maybe you're going to go after them. Right? And then you're going to start copying their actions, right? And that happens many times. When you come and you start praising, the people come, they start saying, look, he's praising that. That's what's important. And then all of a sudden they want to start copying it. So what happens? Says the Gemara, but 1 second. How do you make the bracha? Right? He saw her. Right? Now what? So you're allowed to shuf einik and then make a bracha on this? So Baruch Hashem, Baruch Shekivanta. So Meitvei, we have a question. The Gemara asks, you have to watch yourself from anything bad, from anything evil. You're not allowed to look at a woman, a beautiful woman, even if she's not married. Or you're not allowed to look at an eshet ish, even if she's far from beautiful. Yeah? Daf Kaf 20b. Or not even begadim, bigdenoi of a woman, right? When she's not wearing them. Why? Because he knows who it belongs to. Velo b'hamor, velo b'hamora, velo b'chazir, velo b'chazira, velo be'ofot. Mizman shemizdiking zalzeh. Not allowed to look at a hamor with a hamora or a chazir with a chazira or a ofot when they're having relations with each other. Why? Because of irur. Va'afilu malei naim. Right? Why? He says even he's going to be malei naim kemalach hamavet. right? We know that the kavanah is that even if a person is ta'ev lirotam, and he's like, mama, she wants to do it, he's chayav litametz, not to mistakel. Some people say that that's the pshat of the malei naim of the malach hamavet, right? He says the malach hamavet of malei naim, that's the remes, right? Yeah, hirurei avera. So if you're not allowed to come, you're not allowed to look. So that's it. So amru alav al malach hamavet shekulo malei naim. They said on the malach hamavet, right? The Nefesh Chaim says that this is the Yetzer Hara. That's a remes that he's always looking to pull a person down, right? He says, however, though the malei naim is the malach hamavet malachim that he saw averot throughout his lifetime. Meaning, if a person comes and he starts looking at averot throughout his entire lifetime, so therefore this is the malei naim that the malach hamavet, when he's going to kill him, he's going to be malei naim. So b'shavat tirato shel chole, during the time when a person is going to pass away, he's going to be on top of the bed. And he's got the cherev in his hand, and he's got a poison on the cherev. The second that the chole sees him, he starts trembling. He opens up his mouth, and he throws it in his mouth. From that tipa, that's what makes him die. That's what makes his body rot, and that's what makes his face become greenish, right? So you see from here the what? So you see from here that you're not allowed to look. So how did they even see the beauty of Avodah that now they're going to come, they're going to make a bracha? So answers the Gemara, Keren Zavit Avai. It was a Keren Zavit. What does that mean? Right? A corner. Meaning the Gemara always mentions, where we learned this in Makot, if you remember, when you're coming in a corner, you always have to look. Why? Because if you don't look and you go like this, you bang into you understand, like somebody that's walking there. So whenever there's a corner, you always have to look. So he says it was a Keren Zavit. And therefore, since she was coming, she was Nistermi Minu. He didn't see her until the last moment. And then he was already honest. So basically he comes and oops, and he saw her. So once he already saw her, so therefore, So says the Gemara, "Velo bigdet tzeva shel isha." We're talking about that you're not allowed to look at bigdet tzeva shel isha. What does that mean? Amar Rav Yehuda Mashmuel says Rav Yehuda Mashmuel, afilu shtuchim al gabe hakotel, even if it's going to be on the wall, which means why? Because at the end of the day, meaning that she's not even wearing them. The reason why is because obviously there's hirur. Amar Rav Papa, we're talking about makir balen, which means that you know who it belongs to. Meaning if you know who, meaning that you're allowed to go to a store and if you see women's clothing, there's not an isur, right? But if you know that this woman has clothing and she has her clothing hanging up and now you're going to see it, that's an isur, because that means you're thinking about the woman. Rava says, Nami, it's also you could deduce it, Diktani, Velo b'bigdet tzeva shel isha, Velo kare b'bigdet tzivonim. We didn't talk about stam, the clothing, but the stam clothing, you walk by a clothing store, there's clothing there. That's not the isur. The isur is it belongs to a woman. Shel isha shmamina. V'amar Rav Chasta, says Rav Chasta, Hanemila, when do we say you're not allowed to be mistakel b'videt tzeva of a woman? He says ba'atike begadim yishanim, that she already wore them. Aval bechadte, but we're talking about new clothing that she never wore. Let lamba, there's no problem. Why? Because he's not going to start thinking of the woman, but she never wore them. If not, anan mana lashpure heche yavinan. How can we come and we give a new clothing to a woman, right, in order to come and to be mechabes et zeh? Hakam mistakel, he's mistakel bo b'sham melachto. So rather the istaklut is going to be something that she never, meaning as long as she never wore it, there's no isur. Mutamech, and according to your reasoning, Hadam Rav Yehuda comes and he says, no, right? When you're talking about the animals with one another and that there's no kilaim, mutar leachnis min chol b'shoferet. He says you're allowed to put it in ki min chol b'shoferet. Hakam istakel, right? You're looking. So how are you looking at the animals when they're doing this? Ela bavite tarid. But rather, a person is busy in his job. They're busy in their job. They're not paying attention to Gemara. Right? They're busy in their jobs. So hacha, he comes and he says also hachanami, the same thing. Pavite tarit. Since he's busy in his job, he's not paying attention. So that's why it's mutar. Because basically, when he's doing his milacha, there's no isur. Okay, fine. Next, we went back to the malacha mavet. Yeah, Amar Mor. Mor comes and he says, Mimena met. Yeah, he comes and he says like this. The Adam is met through how? The tipat mara, which the Malach HaMavet throws into his mouth. So name a pliga Avodah Shmuel. This argues on the father of Shmuel. Tamar Avodah Shmuel was the father of Shmuel. Comes and he says, Malach HaMavet. The Malach HaMavet came and he told him, Ilo dechaishina likara dibiriyata. If I wasn't choshesh, if I was choshesh for kavod briot, have a parana bet shchita kebeema. I used to come and I would do shchita to the person like an animal. So mamash, it's mashma, the Malach HaMavet comes and he would actually cut the simanim, as they say, much like that. But because of the kavod that it shouldn't be looked out on the outside, so therefore that's why he comes and he does it on the inside, like with a poison. So says the Gemara, Dilma taipa mechatchel simanim. He says maybe that tipa in itself already does that. Meaning it could be that the tipa goes into the neck, like it goes into the mouth, and it actually kills him through cutting the simanim. And therefore, the only thing is, it's going to be on the, so fine. And then it says, Vimena Masriach. From that tipa, it's going to be Masriach. There's going to be a proof to Rabbi Chanina Makana. Rabbi Chanina Makana, Amri Berav, Harotze Shlu Yasiach Meto, Yavchenu Al Panav. If a person wants that the met should not be Masriach, Yavchenu Al Panav. What does that mean? Hasrachat met comes from the tipa mara. So therefore, if you put it on his face, right, downwards, facing downwards, it's not going to be Masriach. So this is actually a proof. Yeah? So he comes and he says, here he says that maybe this only helps if he's still a goses before he dies, right? Because if he's already done, but if he's already a goses, you know how to move him. So there's a whole thing here in the Hagalot over here. Okay, now he says, Tanur we also learned in the Braita, Nishmarta mikol davar ra. What does it mean, Nishmarta? Shelo yareh adam bayom v'yavol tuma v'layla. A person shouldn't be thinking all day and then come to tuma in the nighttime, right? Remember when he has his chocolate and marshmallows and all those things, but then he comes to tuma. So says the Gemara, mikan, from here, says the Gemara, Amar bipinchas ben Yair, says bipinchas ben Yair, yeah, mincha narvit, yeah, he says bipinchas ben Yair, Torah mevia lidei zehirut. When you learn Torah, Torah makes you cautious. Torah makes you pay attention. So it brings you to zehirut of chet. Zehirut mevia lidei zrizut. Zirut of a chet also brings you to zrizut b'shmirat chet also, right? Zrizut is going to come in via lidenikiyut. It's going to bring you for the purity of sin. Yeah. By the way, you should know on each one of these you could go because this is the Ramchal, right? This is we're talking about. This is the So even though we're going through it very very quickly, look at just the footnotes and you understand how much we're really reading over here. Nikiyut. When a person is clean of sin, it's going to bring him also to be machmir on himself, to prishut. Prishut is going to bring to ta'ara, to purity. Purity, ta'ara, is going to bring to chasidut. Chasidut brings to anava, to become ananav, to become humble. The Ramchal. Totally. Anava, right, is going to be meviali de yirat. So humbleness is going to bring a person to yirat. Yirat chet, meviali kedusha. Kedusha is going to bring to ruach hakodesh, and ruach hakodesh is going to bring to techiyat ha-metim. Yeah, he could actually do techiyat ha-metim. Okay, so says the Gemara, right? V'chasidut gedola mikulan. The chasidut is greater than all the ma'alot. Shneimar, az dibarta bechazon lachasidecha. So you see from here that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted dafka chasidecha and not yerecha and not anav, right? And not all those things, the chasidut. Upliga the Rishon Levi, this argues on Rishon Levi, because the Rishon Levi says anava migdol mikulan, that anava is greater than all of them. Shneimar, but says the pasuk, ruach Hashem Elokim alai yan mashach Hashem oti levaser anavim, hasidim lo neemar el anavim. Halamata anava gedola mikulan, that anava is greater than everything. So basically, again, you've got a machloket. Look in the footnote 37 over there, 37, that there you have a whole bunch of things about chasidut, anava, yirat chet, kedusha, which one's the highest one, right? Again, you have all these different opinions. Fine. 2 dots. We just said that you're not allowed to come and you're not allowed to sell the mechubar la karka, correct? Okay. So he says, but you're allowed to sell it if he's going to cut it down. So says the Gemara, we learned in a Braita. Okay, Kafa Mudbet, the 2 dots, right? We're three quarters down, right, on the page. We learned in a Braita. You're allowed to sell them a tree on condition to cut it down, and then they cut it down. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Min says, they're only going to sell them an ilan, which is already katzutz. What do you mean already katzutz? Which is already cut down, right? Shahat, when we're talking about now shahat, al menat ligzoz vigozez, right? In order to cut it down. And so the shachat is basically going to be the third of the givolim, right? We're talking about like the wheat and all those things. These words are Yehuda. B'mir omer hem mochlim lahem legezuzah. You only cut it when it's already. You only sell it to them when it's already cut. Kama al menat liksor v'kotzer divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Right? B'mir omer hem mochlim lahem lekitzura. No, tevuah has to be already kitzira. Remember, each one of these things we're talking about where you're actually cutting it. So by omer, or by the wheat, you're kotzer. By the shachat, you're gozez. By the what's it called? By the tree, you're kotzetz. Okay, you cut it down. So each one is a different language of cutting it down. Okay, utzricha. Now you need all three, because here we spoke about ketzitza, geziza, and ketzira. You needed all three of them. Why? Diashmin and the ilan. If it was only written about the ilan, which was the first one, yeah, he says, and this one Rabbi says, because you're not losing anything, right? So mashile, so maybe you could leave it there, right? Why? So then you're actually selling him chaniya in the karka, because you're not losing anything. You sold him a tree, so he's gonna just leave it there, and that's it. Aval hai, but everything else, kamashile pasid, if he leaves it in the ground, right, it's actually going to make it worse. So Ema Model Rabbi Yehuda, I would say that he agrees to Rabbi Yehuda, and that's why he says that it's going to be mutar. The Yeshvinim, if I only taught the other two, which is the Ilan and the Kama, because you don't know the Shevach, which means it's not Nikar the Shevach as long as they're Mechubar Lakarka. Right? He says, Aval Shachat, the idea Shivchai, but Shachat, you know that it's going to be the Shevach. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda agrees to Rabbi Meir. And if I only taught about Shachat by itself, only in this case does Rabbi Meir say this, right? That you're not allowed to sell it to the Vekochavim in order to cut it down. But in all other cases, maybe he holds like Rabbi Yehuda that it's going to be mutar, right? To cut it, meaning you're allowed to sell it on condition to cut it. The question is, do you have to actually cut it down and give it to them that way, sell it to them that way, or you could sell it when it's attached? Okay, fine. Says the Gemara, we have now the following question. Behemal menat lishchot, right? Can you come and sell a behema in order to do shechita? Right? So you have to make a condition. I'm selling you an animal. Al menat lasot shechita. Mau. Are we somech that he's going to do it or not? Yeah. Why? Because maybe we said it was going to be a gezerah. That you're not allowed to sell it to them, right? But it's behemot gasot, and then they're going to have there are two different reasons, if you remember. Whether it's going to be that he's going to lend it to him, and then he's going to do an isur on Shabbat, and that would be a sur, or gezerah. Maybe what's going to happen is he's going to buy it samuch l'shkiat hachama, and then because of your voice, he's going to move, and then again is mechalel Shabbat. So two different reasons. So he says hatam over there. Tamamai shari Rabbi Yehuda. Why did Rabbi Yehuda say it's permitted? But it's not in your reshut. So you can't do anything, right? You can't wait. You can't do anything. Since it's already in the reshut of the goy, mashvile, he's going to leave it over. Maybe there's no difference. So Tashma, we're going to try to bring a proof. The Tanya, we learned in a Braita. Be'emal minat lishchot v'shochet. Right, you're allowed to sell an animal in order to do shechita, and he does the shechita. No, you could only sell him if it's already done shechita. Meaning, according to Shitat Rabbi Meir, said davka im ze kvar shechuta lefanecha, then you could come and you could sell it to the goy. Beforehand, you could not sell it to him. So you see some machloket Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda.